Hi, guys. Welcome to Monday's live daily Premier League transfer news with me, Barnaby Slater. And if you're a Spurs fan like I am, it was hard to get out of bed this morning, wasn't it? The infighting amongst the fan base is ramping up as the season stumbles from bad to worse. And let's face it, it is hard to see light at the end of the tunnel. However, life and transfer talk goes on as Spurs seem determined to replace what seems like a Real Madrid-bound Christian Romero before that deal goes through. I'll bring you news on that, as well as some more Tottenham and Premier League transfer rumours, alongside, of course, all the fallout from yesterday's lame FA Cup exit. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Already, Sean Pierce watching from Vietnam. Really appreciate it. Berbatov's halftime smoke says in the chat, Barnaby, been here since your Tannoy hijacking days. If you don't know about what happened with me and the Bournemouth Tannoy system, give that a little Google. And also, guys, as I've mentioned on Saturday when I did a video, all this week I'll be doing my daily content live at 12:30 on YouTube. So come over, give the videos a like and press subscribe. I'm getting really close now to 15,000 subscribers, only about 650, 700 away. So really value your support. Got such a great community building up here and doing these live shows every day. I'm going to really enjoy getting into the chat with you as I bring you all the Tottenham news, transfer news, and more. Let's get started. And like I said, it does seem like Tottenham are determined to replace Real Madrid-bound Christian Romero before he leaves. Obviously, they went for the Mark Gahey deal on the last day of the transfer window. And now the rumours are, according to reports, that they're going big or want to go big on Everton and England defender Jared Branthwaite. He's also wanted by Chelsea and Manchester United. And the value is apparently £70 million. Now, that seems like a lot of money. Of course it does. But when you think about the fact that Tottenham bid £60 million plus £10 million in potential add-ons for Mark Gahey towards the end of the transfer window, that makes it somehow potentially more of a goer in the summer, especially if you think realistically that Real Madrid are probably going to have to spend, if you ask me, about £100 million if they want to get Christian Romero into their club. He's won the World Cup, he's won the Copa America, and Daniel Levy, obviously one of the world's most difficult negotiators when it comes to selling players. So let me know what you think. Is Jared Branthwaite likely, or is it more likely that we'll go for kind of a Mark Gahey bidding war as Newcastle and Chelsea are looking at him as well? And who would you prefer? Let me know in the comments. Would you prefer Branthwaite or Gahey, or is there someone else you would like to come in if indeed we do lose Christian Romero? I know it seems a bit wild to think about potential transfers coming in right now, but it's only a few months away. And in reality, if Romero is determined to leave, then yeah, we're going to have to replace him, that's for sure. Some more transfer rumours. Tottenham are going to be fighting with West Ham for a player who has been on their list for a while now. That is 24-year-old Colombian international Richard Rios, who plays for Palmeiras, my Brazilian team, by the way. According to some reports, he's garnered a market in the Premier League. West Ham and Forest also interested. However, there's a release clause on him of 100 million euros. I don't think that's going to... They're not going to get anywhere near that for him, realistically, him playing in the Brazilian league. But he is an enforcer, and let's face it, Tottenham need a number 6. They need someone who's going to be able to put who's going to be able to put their foot in, because at the moment the gaps in Tottenham's midfield is completely ridiculous. Like yesterday against Aston Villa, again for like the 3rd or 4th game in a row, it's just been absolutely ridiculous how easy it has been for the opposition to play through Tottenham Hotspur. And we need players who are going to come in. Actually, I saw a social media picture today of a screenshot of one of the moves yesterday when Aston Villa had the ball, and Rodrigo Bentancur was kind of out on the right wing. And someone rightly said, is that because the manager has told him he has to be on the right wing, or is that because he's just chosen himself to go out there? And either way, it's not a good look. So Tottenham need to be looking at number 6s. Obviously, they've got a first dibs deal on Johnny Cardoso from Real Betis, but also all the reports keep coming up of Richard Rios from Palmeiras. So let's see what happens with them. With him. Another report coming out this weekend from Italy that Tottenham and Arsenal both considering a move for ex-Everton striker and now Fiorentina player Moise Kean. For me, that one does not strike me as something that is altogether that exciting. He really flattered to deceive in the Premier League. Obviously, he was a young player. He's still pretty young. But I don't know. In terms of forwards, I'm not really sure. Just getting into the comments now. El Dante says, why is everyone assuming that Romero is desperate to go to Real Madrid? How about we don't play mind reading for once? Well, listen, that's a fair comment. But in my experience of all the players that Tottenham have lost to Real Madrid down the years and the way that Real Madrid do business in general, they tend to decide on the kind of player that they want a few years in advance and then just start leaking it out. And it's been about 18 months that they've been leaking out that they're interested in Christian Romero. He's had to answer questions in press conferences and interviews about it. And they really kind of just drip feed it in the hope that eventually, the player makes it clear that he wants to leave and wants to go to Real Madrid. And really, in reality, when a club like Real Madrid comes in for you, you desperately want to go. And that's why we lost Luka Modric to Real Madrid, why we lost Gareth Bale to Real Madrid, and why every player who is interested or who Real Madrid are interested in ends up going there. Kieran Proper, thanks for your comment, mate, says, I think we have to ship off Bissouma and Bentancur. They seem like they don't want to play hard. Let's get Cardoso and Wharton in to solidify the midfield. Well, reports last week that Tottenham are interested in as well in Adam Wharton from Crystal Palace, who obviously only moved there a year or so ago from Blackburn, but did really well in his early games at Crystal Palace before he got injured, and obviously made it into that England squad as well. Okay, we do have to get into, of course, the fallout from yesterday's performance. Ange Postecoglou, I have to say, I was quite critical of Ange yesterday for all those reasons I mentioned, the midfield and some of the tactical stuff, but he did give a really impressive, impassioned defense of his players in his press conferences after the game. And I'm going to bring you some of those quotes and let me know your thoughts in the comments. I really want to bounce off you guys and try and find out what you guys who are watching and listening have to say. Please do give this video a like. We've got 22 likes at the moment. Let's try and get it up to 50 likes and get this seen by as many Spurs fans as we possibly can. Just before I go into it, Spurs T-Rexes, I miss Cuti Romero's walks around the pitch with the ball. No one dares tackle him. Yeah, listen, to say the least, we have missed Christian Romero's ability on the ball. Absolutely. To play those kind of defense splitting passes over the top, but also the balls in between the lines into midfield. And also just he's more of a leader. I think he leads by example. And we've missed his tackling as well. Just a really brilliant tackler. Anyway, Ange said this on the disappointment of yesterday's 2-1 defeat to Villa. He said, it's a disappointing result. Cup competition. We wanted to progress. We didn't do that tonight. And that's disappointing. We didn't get off to a great start, meaning Kinski's mistake, of course. It doesn't help when you're playing away from home, especially a place like Villa, to concede so early. It gives the momentum and confidence and gets the crowd going. We were struggling to stay in the game. And having said that, we had a big chance to equalise, which could have settled things down for us. And that was Sonny's chance, of course. The second half was more even. We got better control of the game. We had to open up, which allowed some transition moments. I felt like we were controlling the game a lot better, and the second goal makes it even more difficult. We kept fighting, got the goal we needed. It just wasn't enough in the end. I mean, what he's saying about the chance we had in the first half is true, except I just don't think it's a good look on Ange himself that he chose Sonny to play in the 9 and Tell to play out wide left. We've all seen Sonny in the 9 this season, and he can't make the ball stick up front. And he's not really been that prolific with his chances this season either. And then yesterday we see that Tell only really gets one chance in the game. It's a very difficult chance and he puts it away. So you have to say in hindsight, it wasn't, in my opinion, a brilliant decision. And also, Tell most likely would have scored that chance in the first half. So that's where I don't disagree with what Ange is saying. Obviously he's disappointed and we did have the chance, but I'm not really sure that he made the right decision there. He went on to say this about the 2 cup exits this week. It's obviously disappointing for us in terms of our objectives. But for 2.5 months, this small group of players have given everything in multiple competitions. I think they've been outstanding. We had 11 first-team players missing today. We started with 4 teenagers, a 21-year-old goalkeeper coming to one of the best teams in the country away from home after playing the best team in the country on Thursday night, after playing a Premier League game last Sunday, after playing a Europa League game. The same group of players, no rotation, and they've been doing this since the middle of November. I think they've given everything they can, and I've got so much respect and admiration for the players and how they've gone about that. We get a couple of midweeks off now. Great for them to recover. We'll get some players back, which is also great for this group that they'll get some help, and we move on. At Tribal Scan in the comments says, Ange is a stubborn dinosaur and it shows. Aaron Mutali says, can Poch be back the next season? I think he is good on developing young players. Well, no, unfortunately, Pochettino is signed up till the World Cup with the American national team. Brother Musa says, Mr. Tactically Bankrupt should have been gone by now. I said 2 months ago we'll be in a relegation battle and out of the cups. Thank goodness this wasn't another 3 points down the drain. So a lot of kind of negativity flowing towards Ange Postecoglou. I have to say, after the game, I do get upset during games when we go out of the cup. I think I've said it before, I'll say it again. We were all kind of hoping that the cups would be our salvation this season. And to go out of the 2 domestic cups this week with a whimper has been very frustrating. So I was pretty angry after the game yesterday. Having seen and listened to Ange's kind of impassioned defense and plea yesterday, I'm a little less kind of angry and a little more kind of understanding. Listen, it is true. And when you see what happened with Liverpool yesterday, who changed all 10 of their outfield players and lost away at the team who are bottom of the championship, the league below. And then Ange coming out, and I'll give the quote, but him saying, listen, we've basically been playing with 10 changes at least for 2 or 3 months. Then he's got a point. I have to say he does have a point. But also, I cannot hide from the fact that despite him having a point, Ange Postecoglou tactically is just leaving far too many gaps. That is the problem. I mentioned Sonny in the 9. Lisa, thank you for writing in. Lisa CKG17 says, Son was terrible in the 9. I think that was a big mistake playing him there. Son really should not be starting. You can see he's struggling, but if he's to start, at least put him on the left. Yeah, I mean, it's easy in hindsight to say it, and obviously Ange saw them in training, and maybe he saw in training that Tell was more suited to the left-sided forward role. But for me, no, I've seen Tell in the left-sided forward role now, and he's not as quick as I think we need someone there to be. The good news is obviously that Wilson Odobert is due to be back soon, but not to sound like a scratched record, but what evidence is there that these players who are coming back, I read this morning that Destiny Udogie is due to be back this week and could well be involved in the Man United game at the weekend. But what evidence is there to suggest that they're going to stay fit when Van der Ven came back and can't stay fit, when Richarlison continually gets his recurring injury? So that's the big worry. That is my big worry. Tarzan says 2.5 months and nothing has changed. Hello, who is responsible no matter what the circumstances? Aaron says, I like Ange, but need a good defensive coach to help him in that area. And Armin Correa says he had his first 11 against Leicester, Ipswich, Brighton, Crystal Palace, but the result wasn't good. That's not exactly true. He didn't have all his first 11 for them, but he did have a stronger team available for those games than he has done since. And Berbatov's halftime smoke says if players were trying so hard, they wouldn't have let Tielemans walk through from the halfway line. So quite a lot of negativity coming Ange's way. Keep the comments coming, guys. Really good chatting to you and talking about it. And went on to talk about being judged with a full squad. He said this. I was saying, take a back 4 of Vicario, Dragusin, Romero, Van der Ven, Udogie, and then add Maddison, Johnson, Solanke, Odobert, Werner. Take them out of any team. How did Liverpool go today? And they just did that for one game. Do that for 2.5 months, any team, like I was saying. Do that for 2.5 months in multiple competitions. I don't care about me. And this is where Ange is trying to protect his players the most, where he's saying he doesn't care if he gets sacked. He says, people will judge me, but you can't judge this group of players on what's happened. They've given everything. Like I said, 2 18-year-olds, a 19-year-old, a 17-year-old, a 21-year-old keeper starting against one of the best teams in the country at home. Villa had a week off. They didn't play Thursday night against Liverpool. We did. Same group of players, not a change. You can't measure this group of players on that and their performance where they're at. It's too easy for people to be critical of them. I just have huge admiration and respect for them. We kind of knew this game was going to be the finishing line because we knew what was coming ahead in terms of midweeks off and getting some players back. They tried their hardest, and that's all you can ask. What I'm saying is you can't be critical of players or players' performances at this time, because if you do, then do that with everyone else. Be as critical of other clubs when they've got 9 or 10 or 11 players out, and none of them have to play every week. And not for one game. I'm just saying we had to do this today. We've been doing this since the middle of November, and you can't judge performances of these players and critique them on what they've done. All they've done is given all they can, and that's all you can ask for. Me, that's not of interest. My responsibility at this football club is this group of players and this team to get them to play in the manner I want them to and bring us success. Whether people think I can do that or not, that is for others to judge. But there's got to be a better appreciation for what a very small group of players have been doing for the last 2.5 months. It can't be that people think that this is an excuse. That's just not anywhere near close to objective analysis. That's agenda-driven stuff. If it's to get rid of me, that's fine. Good on you. Go for it a million times. But in terms of this group of players, what they've given over the past 2.5 months has been outstanding. It's a credit to them. I can't speak highly enough of them. So, a really kind of bullish defense of the players. Now, I want to ask you guys, let me know in the comments, is he really defending the players now there? Is that what it's all about? Do you think the young players and their confidence? Or is he trying to deflect the attention a little bit away from his own tactical weaknesses? Because yes, there are some. I mean, I think what he's potentially suggesting by an agenda is the idea that because he's from Australia and he's not played or managed in one of the elite leagues before, that people, as soon as it started going wrong, just thought, this guy's come from farmers leagues and he's not up to it. That, I think, is what he must be talking about in terms of the agenda. But the reality for me is, yes, of course, all of this is right, and he should defend the youngsters. And Liverpool showed, as other clubs have shown since year dot, that when you change a lot of your team, there is no rhythm. It's very difficult for the teams to develop familiar patterns and stuff like that. And Spurs have struggled with all of that. But is he also using this opportunity to kind of protect himself and show Daniel Levy as well at the same time? I'm not going to do what Conte and Mourinho did. I'm not going to throw the team and the board under the bus, and I am the right man for you because I almost work as a protection to Daniel Levy. That is what some of that could be deemed to be as well. Like I said at the top of this show, I was impressed with his impassioned defense of the team, and I think it is the right thing. But also, I want some of these journalists to ask him. I want some of the journalists to say to him, and why do we have so many injuries? Talk to us. Tell us why. Why have we got more injuries than not only any other club has, but any other club has really in my living memory of Premier League football? There was a couple of years ago where Liverpool had a terrible injury crisis, but I don't remember it being as many as kind of 12 at a time, and not just 12 from the squad, but 12 players who literally are in that first team or in the first team squad, and players who are going to affect matches. So that is what I'm wondering. Let me know what you think in the comments. Let's see what we're saying. Tarzan says, remember, we haven't been doing well since Chelsea last season, no matter who played. That is a really good and valid point, and thank you for making it. It's not just this season that the injuries have been happening and that we've been playing badly. Also, since the 10th game of last season, we couldn't get the right team out. We couldn't get the back four out together. And so what evidence is there? I'm sorry to say it again, but what evidence is there to say that it's going to change and these players are going to come back and that it's going to be different? Just Matt, thank you for your comments. Says, I've always wanted to back Ange. He brings exciting football to watch. However, it's slowly starting to fade away now due to tiredness or maybe lack of playing for the manager. Also, love the videos. I appreciate that, Just Matt. Listen, tiredness, absolutely a huge part of it. But also, there have been some times where I've seen them jogging about, and I do wonder, are they fully playing for the manager? I agree with you, Matt. Is it as obvious as it was a few months ago that they love the manager? I don't know. I really don't know. I really hope it is. Amin Correa says, listen, we shouldn't be 14th with this squad. We are better than that. And Lisa, again, she mentioned Sonny being in the 9 earlier. She's gone on to say, Ange not putting Tell in the 9 is a head scratcher. Why not use Scarlett and Ajayi? Seriously, they have fresh legs and bring energy and have a lot of hunger to do well. They could have sparked the team. And this is something I said after the game yesterday. I have to say, I agree with that. Listen, I don't know if you can use an excuse that these players have just been played into the ground if you yourself, as the manager, are unwilling to use some academy players who do have legs. Listen, those academy players may not be as good as those first team players. Of course they're not. Although, they all impressed, let's face it, when they came on and scored goals in the Elfsborg game. But what they will have is legs and energy. And if Ange is able to set them up in a structure that makes us hard to beat, then, maybe then you can maneuver around your more tired players in and off the bench to fit in around them. Billy Hotspur says, just watched another pod, and apparently Eric Dyer said after his move that Ange didn't work on tactics at all. Well, listen, that is half true. Eric Dyer did definitely say something akin to that. But I think what Ange says is that Ange basically takes more of a watching brief in trainings, and he tells his coaches to do the tactical drills and the tactical work. And I saw an open training session with Spurs, and that is what happened. Tarzan says, what evidence is there that the injured players are coming back? It keeps getting extended. And I have to agree with that as well. We were told that the injured players would come back at the beginning of February. And it's not the beginning of February anymore. It's getting into the middle of February, and they're still not back. And, he's saying, oh, we should get some relief before the next game. Well, the next game is only 7 days away. And I'd be very surprised, I have to say, if we saw, 3 or 4 players back from injuries. I don't know. Tarzan says, yes, every bit of Ange speak is directed to Levy to save his job. Matt Richardson says, I'm not at all convinced that getting players back will help. I think it can only help. I mean, it doesn't look like we're going to get Van der Ven and Romero back anytime soon, but I think Vicario's shot stopping will help for sure. And I don't think he would have let in that first one. I like Kinski as a goalkeeper, but he's played too many minutes too quickly. And obviously that mistake came from him being a little nervous at the beginning of the game and just wanting to get the ball away from him, trying to parry it away when actually it could have just come into his chest like that. Spurs T-Rex says, I agree about the youngsters' rotations. Nick in Hong Kong says Angie's tactics are like Tic Tacs. They suck. Okay, that's not a great pun, but I appreciate you writing in. Thank you. And Driving My Hyundai says, need clarity on what players are coming back in real timelines, i.e. Van der Ven and Romero. Well, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I do feel like there is something fishy about the Van der Ven situation, especially. There were those rumours that he was injured and re-injured again, and then Ange has said he's not. I feel like, is there a chance? Maybe I'm just being a cynic, but is there a chance that Ange is kind of trying to protect himself by saying, no, he's not re-injured, he just doesn't feel right? I mean, what does that even mean? I don't know. PKD81 says in the comments, Ange should have been sacked after the 4-3 loss at home to the Blue Scum. Is that Chelsea? Throwing away a 2-goal lead. Now it's just sunk cost fallacy. Yeah, that was the Chelsea game. And Kieran Proper, thanks again for another message. Really appreciate it. Says, I think we need to realize that the whole season is now squarely on the Europa League. Thanks so much for your support, guys. 350 of you watching this concurrently at the moment. 58 likes. If you haven't pressed like, please do press the like button. And if you like daily Tottenham Hotspur news, transfer news from across the Premier League, and you're not already a subscriber, please do press that subscribe button. I'm doing live shows on the weekdays now at 12:30. So come and join me during your lunch break for Premier League transfer news. Really appreciate it. Ange Postecoglou in his press conference was then asked about Spurs not playing like a Postecoglou team at the moment. He got really frustrated at this point. He said, I don't know how else to explain it. I don't know how else to explain it if you can't see that this team is just trying to play its hardest in the most extreme of circumstances. 2.5 months of asking 18-year-olds and 17-year-olds and senior players with no rest to play Thursday, Sunday, Thursday, Sunday, Thursday, Sunday. I'll keep going for 2.5 months. And if you think that is not at all a factor of how this team is performing, then there's nothing else I can say. Then there's nothing else I can explain. But that is the point where I would agree with some of you guys in the comments. And if I was a journalist in the room, I would have been tempted to say, well, Ange, what about blooding some of the academy players then who do have legs and asking them to play in quite a structured way, positional way, so that we do have players amongst some of those more tired players to make up some of the running. That's what I would have suggested it. But listen, I do understand from the journalist point of view as well. Very difficult in the room, especially when you've got a very frustrated manager who, in Ange's case, he can kind of rip a new one to some of those journalists sometimes. It went on when he was asked about the playing style staying the same regardless of injuries, and he got more frustrated. He said, no, because they're tired, mate. Do you think if we hadn't played Thursday night and I hadn't rotated that team, we wouldn't have been pressing aggressively today? There's a fair chance. So what he's saying is if he'd been able to rotate the team, they would have pressed better. Unless you don't think they're human beings, unless you're superhuman, you think, no, after playing Liverpool on Thursday night, they should be flying tonight. It doesn't happen. They're human beings. Why do you think Liverpool and others rotate 11 players? Why? There's a reason, and I wish I could do the same. So you can bring a freshness to the team. Of course, they're not playing anywhere near the levels that we want or expect, but that's not because they're not trying. It's because they can't. I think this group of players, once we get the rest of the group in, will be an outstanding team. I have no doubt about that. Whether other people can't see that, that's of no interest to me. If you want to measure anything on what they're doing at the moment, other than the extreme situation they're dealing with, then I think your analysis is skewed and it's not objective. That is my opinion. Listen, do I think that when it gets to the last 16 of the Europa League, which is, I think, in about 4 games' time, if we had our entire squad fit, that we would be a match for anyone? Yes, I do. I think we would. But the problem is, if Ange, it's all well and good Ange saying this, but if Ange thinks that it's going to work like that, then I'm afraid evidence suggests he's wrong. That he's wrong because he doesn't get his first team playing. That there are too many injuries all the time. David Blair, thank you so much for commenting. He says, I'm sorry, but you can't ask academy players to do that. The level differences between Premier League and academy is night and day. Yeah, do you know what, David? I thank you so much for your comment. And I don't disagree with that. I don't. But I do think that the levels between academy and tired Premier League teenagers who have played far too many minutes and are not able to press in the way that the manager asks them to, probably the difference between them probably isn't night and day. That's where I think I'm just suggesting that you could potentially bring in some of those younger players at times to add energy to some of the tired squad. That's all I'm suggesting. But I don't disagree with what you're saying. It's a very difficult situation. Let's see. Robert Wren says, when it comes to so-called tired players, why is it they still turn up every day for training but are left out of the games? Robert, who are you talking about specifically then? Let me know. Paul Bean says, going out the FA Cup yesterday is a blessing. No way in the world we were going to win it, and it would just be extra games. Now we can concentrate on the Premier League and Europa League. We can win the Europa League. Paul, thank you so much for your comment. Let me know in the comments again, what makes you think we're going to be able to go to, say, Galatasaray, who's one of the clubs we could play in the next round of the Europa League, and that we'll have a fit enough team to go there and get a result and to play over 2 legs and get a result? I really don't know. Eugene Mallingham, thank you so much for your comments. It's wishful thinking. Wish we could go back to the Tottenham that ruled the league in the first 10 games of last year. Wonder if we'll ever get back there. Yeah, I would love that. Jeff, thank you so much for your comment. Says, no point changing manager till the end of the season. Just look at Man United. No point having Ryan Mason in charge again. Wait till the summer and we can hopefully get the Bournemouth or Brentford manager. Yeah, listen, I have to say, and I've said it before, I'll say it again, I think what's happened at Man United and Ruben Amorim and his total inability to improve things there and how inconsistent it is and how many losses they're taking is also helping Ange keep in his job, as is the fact that there is literally seemingly nobody available, maybe than Edin Terzic. So, yeah, I think that's a really good point as well. El Dante says, right now I'd focus 100% on Europa League and let the league be. Who cares if we finish 16th at this point? 11th or 12th is hardly any better. Well, look, I don't disagree. However, I think we were all thinking we were going to potentially get to the Carabao Cup final, and maybe we'd get through the FA Cup. And now we're out of those. So now we're putting all our beans in the, in the Europa League jar. But if we turn up to those games the same way we've turned up to these last 2 cup games, we're going to go out of that as well. And like I said, Ange is putting all his hope on the fact he's going to have his team back for those games. And I hope he does. I desperately hope he does. There is nothing I want more than for Ange Postecoglou to be lifting the Europa League at the end of this season. We get in the Champions League from that, and we've got the trophy monkey off our back. And this whole time will be forgotten. But the problem is, I just do not see a world in which our players are going to be fit enough to do that, because there's no evidence to back it up. I'm sorry to go on about it again. Lisa says, what makes my blood boil is when Ange says how tired the players are, and then he does not use the players on the bench like Scarlett Ajayi, etc. What does he have to lose? It's infuriating. Eddie says, we need a manager sympathetic to the player's style, not another complete rebuild in style. Yeah, one thing I would say is I do feel confident that with Johan Lange and Scott Munn, whatever happens next with the manager, be it soon or in the summer, or not at all until a few years down the line, that we will continue to at least choose a manager who will have an evolution of an attacking style. I don't think we're going to go back to pragmatic managers, and that's why they're buying players, albeit young and exciting players, and probably players who are having to play too many minutes, but they are buying those kind of players with a mind to keeping that kind of attacking style going down the road. David Blair says, I'm really hoping that Vicario's back for Man United. Fingers Finn says, obvious that the training regime is too intense. I wish he would play the youngsters. Well, I said this on yesterday's watch along. I've been saying that surely the training is too intense, but then somebody in a comment made a really good point that has resonated with me, which is, obviously we had Pochettino, who's renowned for his hard training style with the making players walk over hot coals, and Antonio Conte, who's big quote from some of his ex-players, like, he makes us eat grass. That's how hard the training is. Is it possible that Ange Postecoglou undertrains them on the training ground, and then asks them to be relentless on the pitch, and as a result, they get muscular injuries because of that? Don't know. No idea. That's the thing. People comment on me all the time, like, you don't know what's happening in training. And it's true. I literally don't know what's happening on training. Stay Ansty, thank you for your comments. Says, what the hell does slow burner actually mean? He goes on about injured players. Some of these lads have been back in full training for weeks. They need the game time, 20 minutes here and there. Come on. Who knows? Yeah, who knows? Anyway, Ange was then asked in his press conference about a reset point and the cup exits coming before players return from injury. He said this: that's the timing of things. Just unfortunate for us that we couldn't get a couple back. We were hoping to get a couple back for this last week, and it didn't happen. We could have risked a couple, but with that, what's ahead, we went conservative on that. It's a bit of a reset now. We'll get 3, maybe 4 players back this week, with the possibility of 1 or 2 others in the week or 2 after that. More importantly, this group has been going, who have been playing, gets a rest. They get a whole week now without having to get up for another game. We got back from Liverpool at 2 a.m. on Friday, the early hours of the morning, so they can get some rest they desperately need physically and mentally. Anthony Tay says in the comments, the injury crisis never ends because of the way he managed the team. Ange will have this job forever because the injury crisis never ends. I think you're saying Ange will not have this job forever because the injury crisis never ends. And David Blair says, all I'll say is there must be something still wrong with the medical staff. Tanganga was hardly ever available for selection, but went to Millwall and is there every game. PKD81, thanks for your comment, says, putting our hope into the Europa League is only going to lead to bitter disappointment. We will obviously be knocked out the next round by Galatasaray or Real Sociedad. Then what? That is the fear, isn't it? That is my fear. It's a really good point, mate. I really appreciate you writing in. Yeah, like I'm saying, what evidence is there to suggest that we're going to be able to turn over a team like that unless, well, even if we do have our full squad back, because they just keep getting re-injured and they haven't played together for so long as well. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. We've just reached over 100 likes. Really appreciate it, guys. Keep those like buttons. Keep pressing that like button. Really appreciate it. And if you're not a subscriber and you want to talk to me and talk to other members of the Spurs community every afternoon at 12:30 during your lunch breaks, make sure you press that subscribe button. Getting really close to 15,000 subscribers now, guys. Got such an engaged community. I really love chatting to you guys. And I think these live shows every day is going to be a way to chat to you more directly every single day. Andrew was asked about the free midweeks that we have coming up. He says, I'm just going to keep on working like I have. The ones who've been playing, we've got to give them some time off. We've got the early part of the week and we'll give them that time off. The boys who are coming back will get the opportunity to give them a whole week of training, which is great. So come Tuesday, we should have 3 or 4 who've been missing. We can give them a full week of training instead of a couple of sessions and then throwing them in. By the time we get to the back end of the week, we should have something resembling a squad of players to prepare for a big game. That then folds into the following week when, again, we've got 7 days and no midweek game to prepare for the next one. So that gives us a real good opportunity to get some work into the guys who've been out for quite a while and give some rest to those who've been going at it. So by the time we get back to being in Europe and having midweek games, we'll be in much better shape. I hope you're right, Ange. I am praying that you are right. Listen, let's try and aim for some positivity just for a bit. Imagine this. Ange is right. Levy sticks with him. The players come back. They stay fit for the rest of the season. We go on a surge in the league, get ourselves back into the top half, and we go on a real deep run into the Europa League, something that we've actually never done. We've never got past the quarterfinals since it's been the Europa League. I think the one I remember, we got to the quarterfinals against Seville, I remember, and lost to them. They went on to win the tournament. Maybe this is it. This is all I can put I try to stay glass half full with Spurs all the time. I really do. So now I'm going to try it again. Maybe that's what's going to happen. They're going to be really pragmatic and careful with Van der Ven and Romero, and they're just going to say, get ready for the Europa League. That's all that matters. And then we're going to be really, really positive and go on a deep run. I would love that to happen. Ange was asked about being hopeful for the rest of the season. He said, yes, definitely. We're in a great position in Europe and we get an opportunity to improve our league form. We'll get some players back over the next couple of weeks. Plenty to look forward to. Okay, let's try and be positive about it. Let's try and be positive about it. Who knows? Who knows? Amin Correa says the Ange team can only play once a week. I would say that actually. But last year, we only did play once a week last year and we still got the injuries last year. That's what was mental about it. So it's not quite as simple. Colin Watton, thanks for your comments. Says we knew 2 months before the window that 4 players were needed. Do you know what I have to say after yesterday's game? I was thinking when I was running this morning, we needed a midfielder as well. I know all the reports in the window were saying we need a defender and a forward, and we got that in the end, kind of in desperation at the end of the window. But we needed a midfielder as well, a genuine enforcer. Tarzan says back means they start training, not back to play. Jazzles says, bring Harry Redknapp back for the rest of the season. Look for a long-term replacement during that time. Just my opinion. Listen, Jazzles, I loved Harry Redknapp. He was brilliant. He did a great job. But unfortunately, mate, since he left Spurs, not only did he take QPR down, but he also was king of the jungle in reality show I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. And I'm afraid that really put his chances of getting another top division job in the bin, didn't it? Let's face it. Charlie E says, it will be fine. they win a few more games this season. They live up to the Spurs status quo. You make it sound like we won before Ange. It's like doomsday. We didn't win before Ange, but let's not also forget, never did I think I'd see a day where I went to Madrid to watch Spurs in a Champions League final. So I have to say, I always fight against the people who say that Spurs have been absolutely appalling. All the pundits who say it's Spurs, it's just Spurs, you know what you're going to get. We got to a Champions League final. We got to finals under Pochettino. Levy has to get some credit for picking the right manager in Pochettino, even if he did go for Van Gaal first. Picking managers is difficult. So where he gets a lot of abuse, Levy, and rightly so, because a lot of decisions he makes are appalling and the optics are terrible. Super League, trying to make doing the furlough of the staff during lockdown, etc., and so many more. He gets some credit for picking Pochettino. Now, what he needed to do was back Pochettino, and he wasn't able to do that because of the stadium build. But Tottenham were good, and I do think Tottenham are not far away from, if they can get fit players, or maybe it is a change of manager or whatever, from potentially having a very good future again. But at the moment, it feels horrible, really horrible. And sometimes the night is darkest before the dawn. That's what I'm really hoping for. That is what I'm really hoping for. Medvi says, 2011 says, let's just see it out. And as long as we stay up, we can sort it in the summer. I can't let it wind me up anymore. All we wanted was to give a manager time. So let's do that. And I think we do have to agree to that. We have given Ange Postecoglou time. We're giving him time. Levy has got so much abuse down the years for not giving managers time. And he is now giving a manager time. So you can't have it each and every way. Jay says, what makes you think any coach we approach would want to be here? I mean, certainly in the middle of the season, that's probably true, I have to say. But I would say in the summer, if we went hard for the Bournemouth manager, he would probably want to join Spurs after staying at Bournemouth in the long term. I think he would look at what is possible with the future and the talent in the squad and the money he gets at Spurs compared to what he gets at Bournemouth and the revenue at the club. He would probably choose that. But let's see what happens. Ange was asked about how he felt Matthias Tell and Kevin Danso did. He said, it's been a situation where we've had to throw them in, unfortunately. It would have been nice to ease them in and get them used to it. I think Kevin's been brilliant since he came in. Great for Matthias to get his goal today. He hasn't played a lot of football recently, so for him to get 90 minutes at this level and score a goal will do him the world of good. Fingers crossed Matthias Tell's hamstrings stay strong. Because we're going to need him. And that was an elite finish from the boy. Only 19 years old. We only made him one chance and he finished it. And like I said earlier in the episode, just gutted he wasn't playing in the 9 when Mikey Moore put over that unbelievable cross in the first half that Sonny couldn't finish. Aston Villa boss Unai Emery was asked about Ange Postecoglou, and he said this after the game: I can analyse his work last year and the first 6 months of this season, and I really appreciate a lot how Tottenham are playing with his style. Last year, they performed fantastically. Of course, every team has their injured players. They have more than normal. The potential they have with every player being available is a little bit lower without those players. I think Villa played... he said, I think we played a very good match today to stop them. They played well, but it was not enough to beat us. When are they going to recover players? When they recover their players, they will perform again like they were doing. Fabrizio Romano came out late last night and said what he has heard about Ange Postecoglou's future. He said, at the moment, there are still no indications of change at Spurs. Of course, no one is happy with the current situation, but no indication of imminent changes. Let's see in the next days and after the next games. I have to say, if Ange isn't going to lose his job now, by which I mean probably this morning at 9 a.m., I think he will have been told that he gets the Europa League, basically, and probably maybe even till the end of the season. And like a few of you have said in the comments, maybe that's the right thing to do. It is difficult after a game where it's been a damp squib like the last 2 games and we haven't been good enough, but maybe that is the right thing to do. Robert Yee in the comments says, yeah, I expect Christian Romero will push it in time for March's international break. Figure that would be back. He'd be back on the training pitch in the coming weeks, ready in March for not for the club, but for the Argentina call up. Yeah, there is some background, isn't there, really, that Christian Romero always finds his way to be fit for the international team, Argentina, but not for Spurs. Eugene, thanks for your comment again, mate. He says, hopefully the players start coming back and we can focus on strengthening our league position. Who knows, maybe go the distance for the Europa League. That's that positivity I'm talking about. I'm going to decide for the rest of this episode to try and be positive, although I'm going to bring you some comments from some other ex-Spurs players that aren't as positive. Let's see, what else have we got here? David Blair says on what I was saying about Iraola, the Bournemouth manager, he said Iraola would definitely come. The whole Spurs setup is there in terms of training facilities and the stadium. Plus, he'd earn a hell of a lot more. Yeah, I agree, David. One thing that is worth thinking about in terms of Iraola, he took a long time to get it going at Bournemouth. He was under pressure in his first 6 months at Bournemouth, and it took a while for them to get used to it. Obviously, when Ange Postecoglou came to Spurs, he talked a lot about how long it takes players to get used to his system. And that was clearly the same with Iraola. So, you know, if they did get Iraola in the summer, Spurs fans obviously would expect a very quick change in fortunes, but maybe it would take a while. Armin says, Romero thinking of Real Madrid, Argentinian news reported it. Howard Eisenberg, thanks for your comment, mate. So, he says, sorry, Ange is not the manager for your long-term plan. We need a better tactician, motivator, PR guy, and better judge of talent. I think Ange is pretty good, I have to say, in terms of motivation. And I think he says the right things in the press. He's a bit stubborn and obviously looks down. A lot of people get angry with him for not looking at the journalist's eye, into the journalist's eyes. I don't really agree with that. I think he's just thinking about making sure he's saying the right things. But I think he's okay at all that stuff, but whether he's the right tactician for the Premier League and just how difficult it is remains to be seen. Charlie, interesting one here about me, says, by the way, Barnaby, your videos after a game versus a day later, like day and night. Prefer when your temperature has dropped a bit a day later. Listen, Charlie, I appreciate your comment. And it's true. I'm not going to fight against that. I honestly think that's what being a football fan is, isn't it? It's I got a comment this morning saying, you only cheer when you're winning. And I was like, I had to write back to the guys like, wait, you cheer when your team is losing? No, it's hard. And when the team are playing so limply, it's very difficult. And yes, there are lots of caveats and there are lots of reasons why Tottenham are doing so badly. But I have to say, I cannot watch Tottenham and pretend that it's enjoyable when we're 14th in the league and we're going out of both cup competitions. Trust me, I'm old enough to remember when it was in the 90s under Alan Sugar and Christian Grossen, and it was much worse then. It was much worse, and I was much angrier back then. But I can't pretend it. But that's why I like to make these videos a day or two later, if I can, as well, to try and give what I think is a more considered thought on it. I like to kind of view all the content, see what the manager has said, and see what all the other fans are saying, and then try and just realize where I'm at. And I do think of myself as a glass half full Spurs fan, but it is difficult at the moment. That is for sure. Colin Watton, thanks for your comment, says this team is lopsided. Reguilon and Davis left footers, not Gray and Spence right footers. Team is lopsided. You can't complain saying players are tired when you don't use your resources. Yeah, I have to say there was a lack of balance yesterday. I think he didn't play Ben Davis because Davis, like Richarlison, has played every minute since he came back from injury, and we cannot afford for Davis to be injured again. But could he have used Reguilon a bit more for a bit more balance? Possibly. I'd say possibly, and he could have moved Jed Spence to play right back to give us a bit more solidity on that side. And a lot of what Villa were doing was coming down our right flank behind Pedro Porro, who I think is a wonderful player going forward. But he does get caught a lot ahead of the ball. And if that is a tactical thing from Ange, then that is something that is a bit of a worry as well. Anyway, I'll move on now. Spurs legend Jermaine Defoe was asked about Son Heung-min and the loss after the game in the Sky studio. He said, I couldn't believe it when Sonny didn't shoot. Talking about that chance in the second half where he passed it to Basuma. At times, as a striker, you do hide. Sometimes it's about going back to basics. You stick together as a group. It's important that Spurs regroup. There's been a lot of noise around Tottenham, the chairman, the manager. The players have to take responsibility. You look at the infrastructure, it's a difficult time. Everyone keeps saying about the injuries and the players that would start. Once he gets those players back and try and finish strong, it will make a difference. Well, I hope you're right, Jermaine. I really do. Not surprisingly, on TalkSport, Rentermouth, Jamie O'Hara went in hard. He said, it's time to go now. Ange is out of his depth. Emery is on a different planet compared to him, and his players bopped us off the park. It should have been 5. We're like reserve team playing in academy games that don't matter. It's crazy. So listen, the truth is probably somewhere in between. Jamie O'Hara is literally paid to talk like that. AB says in the comments, talking about the potential of Branthwaite coming to Spurs, says Branthwaite and Van der Ven is a lopsided centre-back pairing. Branthwaite won't want to sit on the bench and cover Van der Ven's injuries. Gay probably the better fit, although probably not a better defender. I appreciate that, mate. I really appreciate that. Neil Turner, is it realistic Harry Kane could return as the club's saviour like Klinsmann did? Or is he a spent force in Premier League terms? Well, I don't think Harry Kane is a spent force. There was, of course, this report that Harry Kane has a £54 million release clause that comes up in a year's time. The Mirror and John Cross, who is an Arsenal fan, by the way, said Harry Kane is keeping tight-lipped on reports that he could make a shock move to Arsenal next year because of that release clause. Let me tell you, that will not happen. Harry Kane would not burn his bridges like that, and that is just the Mirror trying to get clicks. So don't worry about that. I personally think Harry Kane will not come back to Spurs next January. I think that will be too soon. I think it's very unlikely that Bayern Munich will win the Champions League this year. I think he will get his first trophy this year. He'll get the Bundesliga title. But I think what Kane will really want is to win the Champions League somewhere. And as far as I'm concerned, he will wait a few years at Bayern where he's just scoring so many goals and making so many assists that he will stay there until maybe they do that. And as soon as they do that, he will probably look to move back to England. Paul Bean says, get Vuskovic in this summer and get him out there with Van der Ven to start next season. One thing I would say about Vuskovic, who's our player on loan at Westerlo in Belgium, young 18-year-old talent, very tall, very powerful, and we do need more physicality in the team, but he's also very slow. He needs to work on his pace. Cantab says about the Harry Kane, that 54 million release clause will be attractive to so many clubs, to be honest. That's absolutely true. And then David Blair just talking about Jed Spencer. Spence really is the one shining light at the moment. His redemption is amazing. I completely agree. Okay, guys, before I just end this video with the other Premier League transfer rumours from around the Premier League, once again, 150 likes on this live show. Thank you so much for your support. Please do press like, whether you're watching it live or whether you're watching it after the fact. And please do subscribe. I'm getting really close to 15,000 subscribers now. Really great community we've got. And with these live shows now coming every day at 12:30 on weekdays, I really love hearing your comments, talking about them, getting it all engaged together, guys. So do press subscribe for daily Premier League transfer news, always starting, of course, with my beloved Tottenham Hotspur, which someone in the comments earlier said, I've noticed you're not saying my beloved Tottenham Hotspur anymore. Well, I am. They are my beloved Tottenham Hotspur. They will always be, no matter what happens. Okay, so over to Old Trafford. United and Aston Villa were both apparently ready to offer 70 million euros for Barcelona's Fermin Lopez in January, but the 21-year-old Spanish forward was not interested in a move. Liverpool are understood to be closely monitoring Feyenoord and Slovakia defender David Hanko, who was on Tottenham's list as well. But if Liverpool are in for him, we're not going to get him. Netherlands midfielder Frankie de Jong has told Barcelona by Barcelona they will not stand in his way of making a summer move to Liverpool. Frankie de Jong has been touted about for two English clubs for ages, and he keeps not wanting to go. Why would he? Stay at Barcelona, mate. Over to Chelsea, they're preparing a move for Antoine Semenyo from Bournemouth for 50 million euros. I think Semenyo's brilliant. I wish Tottenham had gone for him last summer, maybe instead of Odegaard. I think he's got the physicality as well as the pace. Really good player. Chelsea also interested in Liverpool's reserve keeper Kelleher, who's very impressive, I have to say. Also, Chelsea Barcelona apparently declined an offer to sign João Felix from Chelsea before he went to AC Milan. Newcastle are monitoring PSV's Johan Bakayoko. He's a real talent. Palace have earmarked the player who was on Spurs' list this January as well, French defender Maxime Esteve, as well as Middlesbrough's Dutch international Rav van den Berg, who's also been talked about being on Tottenham's list. They're looking at potentially replacing Mark Gahey with one of those in the summer. Over to South London, and Real Madrid want to sign William Saliba. He is top of their list with Christian Romero. And also, apparently, South London are interested in signing Diogo Jota from Liverpool, with Liverpool willing to sell the 28-year-old for the right fee. Okay, guys, before I leave, let's just get back into the comments. What have we got left? Glenn Sparks says Kane would be the perfect number 10 for Spurs. And AB says Kane's legacy at Spurs is surely important to him. If he goes to Arsenal or Chelsea, he loses a lot of that instantly. Yeah, I don't disagree. I don't think he'll be going there. And who knows, if he wants to come back to the Premier League, Spurs might end up being the best option for him. Listen, guys, thank you so much for getting involved in this live YouTube Premier League transfer news show. So many of you watching and pressing that like button. Please do press it if you haven't already. Also, please do subscribe to the channel and let's get me up to 15,000 subscribers. Loving doing these videos for you guys. And I will be back tomorrow, 12:30 again for another live edition. So even though it's been a difficult weekend, we're out of both domestic cups, still some excitement to look forward to with, of course, the Europa League. And maybe, just maybe, we'll feel better after the weekend when we take on Manchester United at home, the only club really who are more of a laughing stock at the moment than Tottenham Hotspur. Come on, you Spurs. Cheers, guys. Goodbye.